Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamodirayat. Canto 3, Chapter 32, Text 29. Yata mahanaham ropas Trivrit pancha vidha swarat Ekadasa vidhastasya Vapur andham jagat yataha Yata mahanaham ropas Trivrit pancha vidha swarat Eda ekadasa vidastasya Vapur andham jagat yataha Yata mahanaham rupas Trivrit pancha vidha swarat Vapur andham jagat yataha Yata mahanaham rupas Trivrit pancha vidha swarat Ekadasha vidhastasya Vapur andham jagat. Ladies, Premananda. Yata mahanaham rupas Trivrit pancha vidha swarat Yata, as Mahan, the Mahatattva, Aham Rupaha, the false ego, Trivrit, the three modes of material nature, Pancha Vidaha, the five material elements, Swarat, the individual consciousness, Ekadasha Vidaha, the 11 senses, Tasya, of the living entity, Vapo, the material body, Andham, the Brahmananda, Jagat, the universe, Yataha, from which and or from whom. Translation: from the total energy, the Mahatattva, I have manifested the false ego, the three modes of material nature, the five material elements, the individual consciousness, Swarat, different explanation, individual consciousness, the 11 senses, and the material body. Similarly, the entire universe has come from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Srila Prabhupada's purport, the Supreme Lord is described as Mahat, pada, which means that the total material energy known as the Mahatattva is lying at his lotus feet. The origin, or the total material energy of the cosmic manifestation, is the Mahatattva. From the Mahatattva, all the other 24 divisions have sprung, namely, you can count them, there's 24. The 11 senses, including the mind. The 5 sense objects, the 5 material elements, that makes 21. And then consciousness, intelligence, and false ego. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the cause of the Mahatattva. And therefore, in one sense, because everything is an emanation from the Supreme Lord, there is no difference between the Lord and the cosmic manifestation. But at the same time, the cosmic manifestation is different from the Lord. The word swarat is very significant here. Swarat means independent. The Supreme Lord is independent. And the individual soul is also independent. Although there is no comparison between the two qualities of independence, the living entity is minutely independent, and the Supreme Lord is fully independent. As the individual soul has a material body made of 5 elements and the senses, the Supreme Independent Lord similarly has the gigantic body of the universe. The individual body is temporary. Similarly, the entire universe, which is considered to be the body of the Supreme Lord, is also temporary. And both the individual and the universal bodies are products of the Mahatattva. One has to understand the differences with intelligence. Everyone knows that his material body is developed from a spiritual spark, and similarly, the universal body has developed from the supreme spark, the super soul. As the individual body develops from the individual soul, the gigantic body of the universe develops from the supreme soul. Just as the individual soul has consciousness, the Supreme Soul is also conscious. But although there is a similarity between the consciousness of the Supreme Soul and the consciousness of the individual soul, the individual soul's consciousness is limited, whereas the consciousness of the Supreme Soul is unlimited. This is described in the Bhagavad Gita 13.3. Kshetragyam chapi mam vidhi. The super soul is present in every field of activity, just as the individual soul is present in the individual body. Both of them are conscious. The difference is that the individual soul is conscious of the individual body only, whereas the super soul is conscious of the total number of individual bodies. Kapila Deva speaking. He's a manifestation, an incarnation of the Supreme. Therefore, he's speaking first person. I did this and I did that. And then in the same verse itself, he's speaking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as if he's not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's not a Shakti Vaishavatar. He's a manifestation of Vishnu. Kapila. And he's describing it in this section as well as a number of other sections in the Bhagavatam with different details in different sections, but the principle is the same. That is, he's the source of generation, which is, guess what? It's a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. The absolute truth is that from which everything comes. Janmad yasya yataha. So this is a further elaboration on, or commentary on, that fact. The fact doesn't change, but there's further detail, further explanation. There are different lists. Here, this is the list that has 24. And Chaita is sometimes used for, the 24th as consciousness. Chaita can mean different things in context. Here the word is swarat. And swarat is a term that, at least I'm accustomed to it being used in relation to the Supreme. He is fully independent. Swarat. And the living entity is also Swarat. So there are different ways of describing. We're not independent. We're dependent. We're fully dependent. But that full dependence is a constitutional position. At the same time, we have free will, and thus we have the independence to be this or that. So, but we don't, the boundary of our independence is tiny. This or that. We can't become the Supreme. So we're dependent. But to some degree, some independence, and thus, we wander here and wander there, and there's some independence. The exercise of free will, kind of independence, with limits. And the personality of Godhead, depending upon the Leela that he's exhibiting, one may wonder, how is it possible? And the answer is, he's fully independent, and he's omniscient, and there's nothing he can't do. And while there's nothing he can't do, there's some things he can't do also. But that's self-imposed. He can't, what is it he can't do? He can't, the feature of love is bound by. But he's bound by because he voluntarily chooses. Then so it gets, which is first, the chicken or the egg? So understanding the personality of Godhead, is one of the topics, one of the principal topics, how to understand the inconceivable in the literature. So the literature has to have some language of inconceivableness, because the topic is he who is inconceivable. So then establishing conceptions, then one has to be very careful. Therefore, there are different approaches from different sampradayas, emphasizing oneness and emphasizing difference. There's besides the Mayavad absolute monism, there's other kinds of oneness features. Because, and it's substantiated by the fact that because he's the source of everything, in that sense, everything has its identity in relation to him. And one can see everything in relation to him. And that's the qualified monism. And then Mahaprabhu, there's other teachings that is Madhvacharya, difference. And then there's simultaneous oneness and difference. It's not that Madhvacharya, by Dvaitavad, was unable to explain things. There's something inexplicable, not expressed. It's a comprehensive sampradaya, and therefore there's a way to explain everything. And then similarly qualified monism. But the expansiveness, the umbrella-like picture of Lord Chaitanya's teachings, it's right here in this purport. Of course, if the commentator was from this sampradaya or that sampradaya or a different sampradaya, the commentary would be flavored differently. It doesn't mean if it's flavored differently, then it's wrong. So the litmus test is this, what's the source? The source is a supreme person. So Vaishnavism is very clear. The source is a supreme person. Bhagavan. Not Paramatma, not Brahman. Those are features of, so that's the litmus test. The source is a supreme person. And then different ways of looking at that which comes from the source, with oneness and difference, or combination of oneness and difference. So here, for a new reader, someone that's not so scholarly and kind of trying to sort it out, and Srila Prabhupada's books have gone to so many people, and most likely to so many more people. Fantastic. And so different persons are going to read in different ways. But they will be unavoidable to get the oneness and difference message, because that's Lord Chaitanya's message. And Lord Chaitanya's message is the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is Lord Chaitanya's message. So reading Prabhupada's books, people will get it. At least, by sound or in written form. And then they'll process it however they process it. However, because transcendental knowledge is pure, in any case it's elevating, and it's what, they may be in this camp or that camp, but come closer to Lord Chaitanya's teachings, and the special benefit or complement to Lord Chaitanya's Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva philosophy is the stage of Krishna Prema that he wanted to give. So there's philosophy or teachings that accompany Krishna Prema, and then there's Krishna Prema. The experience of Krishna Prema. And the Krishna Prema feature that Krishna displays, particularly in Vrindavan, the sweetness that Krishna displays in Vrindavan, according to the Bhagavatam, there's a very clear, very simple explanation that's not easy to understand, and not easy to understand because we hold on to other conceptions. But by hearing and hearing and hearing, they're certainly attractive, just like our yesterday's discussion about Kaliya. And this feature, that feature, the other feature. There's the love that Krishna has in this particular pastime that he displayed is very unique on the one hand, and on the other hand, and then this thing, and then that thing. And others died instantly when they entered into the river Jamuna, and Krishna didn't. He's splashing around. He didn't die. He could have had a pastime that appeared like that. Anyway, because there's no material body. What's that? So it's like the living entity that's the eternal soul. Krishna has eternal body. Living entities have an eternal spiritual form that's different than the covering. The covering has this, so it's back to this, the topic, the 24. The Mahatattva transformed. And back to this nice term, Mahatpada. This Mahatattva is at his feet. The Mahatattva does what Krishna wants. It doesn't do what Krishna doesn't want. It's all under his direction. Just a little bit, and then I'm going to pause. 3 times in the past week, there have been discussions. We have very sincere devotees wanting to understand the independence of Krishna, and because he's independent, the phrase that not even a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Supreme Lord, and yet he's aloof and doesn't do anything. So some people get this, and some people. So to understand the relationship between Krishna and everything, we have free will. He has unlimited free will, and with his unlimited free will, he sanctions turn left, turn right. He's not prescribing turn left only, turn right only. He's indicating, but living entities still have the free will options, and sometimes they choose wisely and sometimes they don't. And he sanctions. And so he maintains his independence, although it may look like partiality and may look like he's controlling, because not even a blade of grass moves without the sanction. But the detail is, sanctioning is one thing, willing is another thing. Krishna doesn't will that we make stupid choices. He wills that we make wise choices, and he gives indication. Just this morning, listening to Prabhupada discuss Prahlad's prayers to Lord Nrsimhadev, and the prayer that he was heading into a whole large section. Prahlad says, not this, not this, not this. I don't want any of these material things, because you get material things and then they're gone. They're perishable. And to get them is more misery than not having. There's so many anomalies, and therefore the only solution is your devotional service. Therefore, please instruct me in your devotional service. Not like Prahlad doesn't know, but he wants to hear directly. And that's a choice. And then the Supreme Lord will certainly reciprocate with Prahlad about what is pure devotional service, with or without the instruction, because Prahlad has been trained by Narada Muni, so he knows. But he wants to hear from Lord Nrsimhadev directly. Why not? The ways of devotional service. And so there's no limit to teachings connected to the essence of life, the direct devotional service to the personality of Godhead through his various manifestations, representatives, and so forth. Science of Krishna. Prabhupada liked that phrase. So, the science of devotional service. And one of the reasons why is, in this world, people look up to the scientist. Like, if the scientist doesn't agree, then maybe it's not right. But if the scientist agrees, then it's definitely right. It's in the scripture, and the scientist agrees. Because we have such faith, Prabhupada, we have blind faith in science. And then there are lots of things that science doesn't explain, cannot explain. So, spiritual science. And so there's cause and effect, and there's different puzzle pieces and how they all fit together, emanating from the Supreme. That's what this verse is saying. He says he, not he. It's I. I have manifested the 24 elements. Similarly, the entire universe has come from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Again, he's back and forth between it's I and him. And without that sound vibration, the process of knowing the source of everything is through sound. Otherwise, it's not possible. It's just not possible. One can have an idea and have faith in the idea, but without really knowing. The source of everything is God. Whatever the language, whatever culture and language the word is God, the source of everything. But that's notional. And then the practical experience of it, that's the medium of devotional service. And I like Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm marveling at the masterpiece of this literature. Let's see if there's some discussion. Yeah.
In practical ways, we find that we are not able to take the instruction of scripture or Krishna, though like here we are understanding that Krishna is the source of everything.
Krishna is what?
Source. Yeah, source of everything. Like, everything is coming from him, like that. So in practical ways, we always feel short of following the instruction or having that faith or things like that. So my question is like, how do we go about not being disrespectful, but also accepting the inability to follow in a cultural sense, Guru Maharaj?
In the culture of?
In a cultural sense, like not being
in a corporeal form, in a bodily form.
I'm not able to.
Yeah, without the microphone is better. Go ahead.
Like, I'm thinking about how to integrate the teaching. So in a practical way, I'm not up for, like seeing a devotee comes and say something. I'm not able to follow it. I'm not able to keep faith, or I'm not able to keep faith in scripture, and I do whatever I'm able to do. In that situation, how do I maintain the respect and devotion by accepting my situation, my image?
Okay, nice question. much better without the microphone. There are different ways of responding to that question. No, one of the ways is to know who you are, and there's coverings of who you are, and acceptance of those coverings, knowing that's not who you are. But by my past free will choices and deeds and so forth, here I am, packaged with a psychophysical nature that's not who I am. With some pluses and some minuses, and that's the package. So, how do I process? How do I acknowledge this is the covering, this is the package, this is the conditioning that I am working with. But the good news is, by continuing, by sadhana, by continuing to strive in the direction of pleasing Krishna, that the essence of bhakti, then gradually, how gradually, however long it takes, that's how long it takes. So gradually, cleansing and awakening. So, what do I do meanwhile? Which, there's a message here that of self-acceptance on the conditioning, not identifying with the conditioning or labeling myself according to that conditioning, but just accepting it and striving towards pleasing Krishna in ways that teaching gives. So, back to your question, I hear from an advanced devotee such and such, but I don't do it. But keep hearing from the advanced devotee, keep hearing from the right sources, with the idea that I want to please Krishna, and it's slowly, again, the cleansing goes on and the awakening goes on by sadhana. So keep in the association of those qualified devotees and hearing from them, and the rest, trying to my capacity, trying to do something that's of service to them, and in speaking in a general sense to the Vaishnavas. It's like, for example, book distribution. Who are we? We just went through this little thing. I'm a conditioned soul with an inability to follow what I hear, what I've heard. Whether I've understood it correctly or not, that's another question. But what I think I've understood, not being able to follow it. That's me. That's the package. And I'm going to go in book distribution. And the book distribution is going to tell people, this is Shuddha Bhakti, and different shades and grades. And so, how can I be a deliverer of that message? Or, how can I do anything? Because I'm this conditioned soul that I don't even follow the things that I've understood, or to speak of the things that I haven't understood. And that's the package. We do anyways because it's pleasing to Krishna. It's pleasing to the spiritual masters. It's furthering the means of elevation for people in general within that book. Or any other thing, the prasadam, deity worship, and any other activity that the devotee may do. It's less than perfect. But if the focus goes to that Krishna should be pleased, and I'm not there. Sometimes I'm there, sometimes I'm not there. But that's the target. That's the destination. In good association, under proper guidance. With some confidence, purification will come. As impure as I am, purification will come. Because Krishna is very kind and he'll see the effort of trying to please him and he'll help. So, along with, our endeavor is prayers for mercy. Anything else? Yes. How about without the microphone? If we're going to use the microphone, I don't know how it's going to work for this Vyasa Puja thing, because the sound system and my ears don't go well together. I don't know how you all are doing just hearing my voice, but somebody would be complaining if you couldn't follow. But I can't. I have a hearing aid. I can bring it and see how it works. Let's try without the microphone, at least for this morning.
I understand that it's every choice.
Yes.
But to act without have so much fun. But we have a choice within a spectrum of choices that, what will take me closer to Krishna, what will take me further away. I can choose.
Yes.
However, I may have willingness to go to what
You may not have what?
I may have the willingness.
Yeah.
And my capacity in the moment
But
may be limited to make a choice that I know is conducive to my
that's sadhana. You strive.
So the agency I feel or I sense, make a choice may be limited by my capacity.
Yeah. But conditioning. My choices are going to be strongly influenced by my conditioning. That's like the inability to hear. His question. And I hear, but I don't follow. So that's our circumstance. So what do? The principle doesn't change. It's important to understand the principle. Because it's a good metaphor. I got a GPS system. I have to put the proper destination into the GPS system. And if I don't put the proper destination in the GPS system, it may be a really good GPS system, but it's not going to get me to the destination. I'll go somewhere. So stay. What's the objective is that Krishna should be pleased. Anukayena Krishna Anushilanam. So I'm going to serve because we're servants. And how do I know if Krishna is pleased? Well, scripture and guru and the sense of diminishing interest in material, society, kangsati, hankering, lamenting, just subsides. Or the converse, if hankering, lamenting start to increase, I missed a target. One can look at oneself, and you have good friends or good advisors that say, are you sure you're headed in the right direction? It seems that So the reminders from well-wishers can be helpful, but the principle is the same principle. Krishna should be pleased. I mean, it's simple, and for some people, too simple. Like, that's elusive. Can you do it? Can you make it more complicated? Someone else? You have to come up front because of the sound system. I can blame my ears or blame the sound system. From yesterday's class,
So these topics of soul and Mahatma, they come under the tattvas.
yes, truth, tattva, yes. Anyone else? Sorry for the embarrassing, you got to come forward and all that stuff, but... What? What?
Try my.
You're going to try again? Okay, try it again. Sorry. Kindergarten.
Guru Maharaj, is this okay?
Go ahead, speak.
Guru Maharaj, about Krishna's will and Krishna's sanction.
Krishna what?
Will and sanction.
Do it again without the microphone. I'm sorry. Maybe you can figure out something besides the big sound system and a little simple sound system. Because I don't want to go through this Vyasa Puja, and it's some solution. Go ahead.
Regarding Krishna's will and Krishna's sanction.
Krishna's will and Krishna's sanction, yes. I brought the topic up.
So things it's not super clear as we are going through situation. I just want to bring this specific example. I was talking to my brother the other day. He has faith in Krishna.
He has what?
Faith in Krishna and Bhagavad Gita.
Good. But
He says, let me hear the sound vibration and let Krishna inspire from within.
Krishna does what?
Inspire from within.
Krishna inspires him
From within.
from within.
Someone else's explanation.
Good for him. How does he know he's headed in the right direction? I'm inspired. Are there people in this world that are inspired heading in the wrong direction? Ask your brother. Is there any way to evaluate your inspiration? Guru Sadhu Shastra, for example. Is that leave it? This is my inspiration. There's no inspiration is nice. Very nice. Confirm it, please. There are sayings. This came out in the topic with the japa retreat. Utsahan nishchayat dayat. Enthusiasm without philosophy is fanaticism. And you could be heading in the right direction or not. You don't know. You can assume it's not. Because what do we know? I'm inspired. So, a reasonable person can understand reason. An unreasonable person won't. The purpose of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, the top is Shastra. And then the message of Shastra through a person. I don't need it. I get inspired. Okay. It's not criticism. It's just, checks and balances to make sure you're headed in the right direction. Anything else? Yes. Okay. We got to fix this problem. Yeah.
Question is related to what was getting with us. People want to go with their own expectations.
Yeah.
That seems to tie with the words for us, the words
Independent consciousness.
independent. When I contemplate the degree to which living entities want independence or think they have independence is so misaligned with reality. It's like vastly misaligned with reality.
I'm thinking of world politics as you're speaking.
Yeah, quite entertaining. And it's so grossly off. My question that I have is, why do traditional entities are so attached?
False ego.
And what do we like?
False ego. Our dear friend. He's in our ear all the time. Non-stop. No break. And if there's something that says, no, it's just an obstacle, I can overcome it. Because I'm smart. The moniker of all I survey, perfect, powerful, and happy, and da-da-da-da. It's the living entity is awarded, it's ABC. The living entity is awarded false ego because we want, fill in the blank. We want to be separate enjoyers. And how strong is that? Indomitable. Once it's intact, false ego is very difficult to get rid of. And there's only one way. It dissolved. And there's only one way. This is right in this section of the Bhagavatam by Bhakti. No.
Comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. We need more of them.
As we were reading it, I've heard so many times when Prabhupada makes a comparison between physical consciousness, individual soul, animating the body, supreme soul,
Yeah.
animating the entire universe. Thinking about if there was just our position in the universe, it's similar to, let's say, if you have an entity within our body, it's like sitting on a cell, one planet, so to speak. Would it think that it's in a living person's body? Probably not. It's very.
It's an interesting philosophical exploration.
It's easy to assume that they was easy to be an alien because it's not so clear that the person.
And therefore there's many materialist atheists. And there's many that are materialist spiritualists, but they're not really spiritualists. It's pseudo. It's one, those that have that diversity of pseudo spiritualism, that's better than, in one sense, dry stool and wet stool. Anything else? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.